All right, in this video, what we're going to be doing is really paying attention to this header area, right? The top part of this website that we need to build out that has our name with a link to our home page, and then we're going to build out, we're going to call it a navigation, and I'll kind of talk more about that, but where our nav is, that would be considered a global navigation for our website. Okay, so I'm going to switch over into brackets, and this is all done in brackets. So what we're doing is paying attention to the header area of our HTML, and then we'll type up some CSS here. Okay, so this is a lot like what we did with the button in the last video. So what we want to do is inside the navigation, a lot like what we did with the footer, we added an unordered list, and then we added a list item with a link. I'm going to do the hashtag for now so I can get it in there. And then this is going to say work, right? So this is going to be considered our global navigation. Now, it may not make a ton of sense, but navigations, a lot like what we did with the social media links at the bottom, a lot of times when you have a list, it's nice to use an unordered list because it's easier to add elements in next to each other and line them up. And in this case, we want it to actually look a little bit more like a button as well. So we have our list item, a link, and inside the href, what we're going to do is we're going to type in work.html. This is a relative path to a HTML file that does not exist yet. But after we kind of do these videos, what you'll need to work on is you're going to build that work.html. Okay, and we'll talk more about that later, but we're going to go ahead and put it in there. So with that, we have our kind of header HTML all set up. The content's marked up the way we want it to. And if I save this really quick and just kind of preview it, you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like. Nothing's really going to line up. It's kind of stacked on top of each other, which is fine. We're going to style it a little bit, and then in the next video, what we're going to do is focus on layout a little bit more. Okay, so in the CSS, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of keep the HTML open here, and in the CSS, right before the main content area, what I'm going to do is add another comment, so that way we can kind of find this later. So we're going to say header and navigation styles, right? So we can kind of find the different bits here. Okay, so a lot like what we were doing with the button and the main, we're going to select elements inside the header and style them the way we want it to. Okay, but we're going to start with the header itself. Again, if you think about like what you want it to look like out loud, that's what we're going to be working towards. So we select the header itself, close the brackets correctly, and what we want to do is just change the background color. Right? So a lot like what we did earlier with the main, we want to change it to black in this case, but you change it to whatever color. Like if you have kind of a color scheme in mind, this is where you get to customize what you want that color to be. Okay? So you pick the color that you want. Now let's kind of start to dig into what we want the links to look like. Okay? So we're going to start with our name. So if we pay attention to our name, how we're going to select this is we want the header tag to select the H1s inside the header, and specifically let's just adjust the link itself. Okay, so this is where we select the header, space, select the heading, so the H1, and then we do the A link. Okay. And we're going to kind of add more to this, but to get started, this is how we're going to select it. Okay, so we want to change that color, so we want to make sure the color is not that blue and underlined stuff, right? Or the getting the styles from the other links, because this is unique. This is our global nav. So we want the color to be white. Now, again, this is where you pick colors that you think works, but what I'd probably recommend doing is like kind of maybe following me and then maybe going back and changing some of the colors if you want to make it look like what you want it to look like. Again, we're going to say the text decoration. is none, because this is our name for a link to our home page. So we kind of have that. Okay. Now we're going to add a few more things here so that way it'll look correctly. So we're going to copy that header h1a link, the pseudo class there, and we're going to paste it, and we're going to do hover and put a comma and then paste it again and do visited. So that way when somebody hovers over it and when they've clicked on it, it doesn't change. It's always white, always has no underline on that link. Okay? All right. So now we're going to so that's our name. So let's flip back over and kind of see what we got going, right? So that underline's gone, but when we hover over our name, it links and it looks cool. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the navigation here. Flip over to the navigation. So again, same kind of thing we just did, but there's a little more that we have to select because it's in an unordered list here. Right? So we have header, nav, and then we want the unordered list. Okay, so we want to tell that unordered list to not have bullets, because right now it has bullets and we don't need bullets. So list style type none, so that gets rid of the dots or the bullets. And if we just keep it at that, we can kind of jump back over and kind of see that, hey, we got rid of the bullets, but we need to fix that link just like what we did with our name. Okay, so when we do that inside of brackets, what we can do is really like what we did earlier. So header, nav, li, and then the a link, right? So we're getting into selectors that are getting pretty long, but if you pay attention to it, this is header, it's looking for the nav, and then it's looking for list items that have links in them, and now we're affecting what that link actually looks like. So again, we can do color, we want it to be white, we want the text decoration to be none, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, so just like what we did with the header h1 up here, we need to do with these links as well. So comma hover and then comma visited. And if it's not apparent yet, these commas, what they do is it groups these together. So you can actually like kind of control the style the same for all three selections. Okay. So when we save this, we jump back into Chrome, check it out. We have a link to to my name, your name, that's white, no hover effect, and then work is the same thing there that is white and no hover effect. Okay, now we want to make this a little bit bigger. We want to control this a little bit more to make it look a little bit better. So let's jump back into brackets and make one adjustment here. So for the font size of the navigation, we're going to say font size, and we're going to say 1.5 ems. Okay. So we get something that looks like this, right? It's not totally correct, but the next video, what we're going to be talking about is how to get these side by side. And then once we got that, we're getting really close to getting our page looking how we want it to kind of move forward. Okay?